yeah, have really proven that to be true for them, as they're using the same exact 6 Pokemon that they have already used in previous events. So I'm not really expecting any like too crazy surprises from either of those, but that's really one of the beauties of this tournament, is where we've played this format for such a long time that now everyone has their team established. Now everyone is at their peak, you know, because they won't really make any more mistakes with those teams usually, because they really know what to do, how they function, how they work. And yeah, this is going to be a treat for all of you at home, hopefully. And we're going into team preview. And yeah, Alessio Yuri Boschetto already selecting his Pokemon that quickly. And both trainers actually already knew what they wanted to do. Maybe they've played against each other before, because yeah, they're both from Italy, so they probably play in their local events. But yeah, for those of you who didn't see what Alessio Yuri, as I think we will call him for the sake of getting less confused than we already are, he's bringing the Tapu Koko, Arcanine, Tapu Fini, Kartana, Porygon 2 and Gigalith to the table, whereas his opponent is going to go with the Alolan Ninetales, Alolan Muck, Garchomp, Arcanine, Tapu Lele and Celesteela.
And we see Yuri leading off with that Tapu Fini and Kartana, and Alessio on the opposing side of the field leading with that Tapu Lele and Garchomp. Interestingly here, seeing the Tapu Lele slower than the Tapu Fini, kind of indicating that Yuri might be running that Choice Scarf Tapu Fini again, but the Tapu Lele getting its Psychic Terrain up. Yeah,
and this is a very, very difficult combination to stare down, because the Tapu Fini with the Choice Scarf outpacing so many threats, and then it has Soak as a move. So what Soak does is it turns your opponent into a water type, single water type, meaning that of course Kartana can do so much damage with super effective Leaf Blade. You can knock out like a Celesteela or an Arcanine with a Bloom Doom potentially, and it's really, really important to land the predictions though with that lead, because more often than not you will find yourself doubling up into one opponent, and if that Pokemon uses Protect, then things can go very, very wrong. But Yuri decides to not really take that risk in the turn 1 and instead just switches into his Arcanine here.
Yeah, so we see the Arcanine come in, getting that Intimidate off, which is going to be really important for getting the Intimidate onto that Garchomp, reducing its attack power. Going to see the Garchomp reveal Flamethrower into that Arcanine slot, which was the Kartana. Arcanine able to take that quite comfortably though. And an Ice Beam from Yuri's Tapu Fini into the Garchomp. Is it going to be enough? It is. It does pick up a quick KO onto the Garchomp. So Yuri taking a quick lead here, and the Tapu Lele revealing a Z-move, which is the Shattered Psyche.
Yeah, so that Garchomp from Alessio, seemingly Choice Scarf as well, wanted to get the quick KO on Kartana, but Yuri reading into that a little bit. However, at the cost of one of his Pokemon, most likely, and this Shattered Psyche in Psychic Terrain, will easily take out the Tapu Fini, which usually is more known to be a defensive and bulky Pokemon, but the way that Yuri trains it, it's not that bulky at all actually. And so Tapu Lele gets the KO there, and now the question is who got the better end of this trade. Alessio losing his Garchomp and Yuri losing his Tapu Fini here, but Tapu Fini it would have been locked into Ice Beam anyway, so I gotta imagine that Yuri is probably not too upset about getting a free switch in here.
No, and it does depend what Yuri has in the back, you know, because that Tapu Fini might have been one of his only ways to deal with Alessio's Arcanine that he's just brought in on the opposite side of the field. It obviously threatens Yuri's Kartana heavily, and his Arcanine's not really doing much. It could potentially pick up some damage onto the Tapu Lele. I don't think after the Intimidate it's going to be picking up a KO, so Tapu Lele is still in quite a threatening position. It obviously is threatened by the Kartana, but you've got to imagine that it probably is trained to take potential Smart Strike if Yuri has decided to run that on this Kartana after the Intimidate.
Yeah, and with that Arcanine switch in by Alessio, really shuts down what Yuri can do with his Kartana. And since both of those players are down to 3 Pokemon only, it's a lot more difficult to shuffle out of those Intimidates while also maintaining like a solid board position. Because for example, Yuri really also has to fear that potential Psychic could land into his Arcanine, and he can't really afford to lose any more Pokemon. But now Alessio, on the other hand, also doesn't want to lose his Tapu Lele that early, as it looks like Yuri actually just went on the full offensive, going with that Z move, revealing the Bloom Doom from Kartana, and more likely than not, this will go into the Celesteela that switched in now. So really nice switch in by Alessio here, either way. And yeah, both trainers are really going with very offensive modes here with their teams. The Celesteela though slowing pace down just a little bit. And the question is now, where do the Flare Blitzes go?
Yeah, we see as Alessio's Flare Blitz into the Cortana on Yuri's side of the field, it is going to pick up the KO there. Don't think the critical hit mattered at all. We do see the Cortana go down, and now we've got Yuri's Arcanine going for a Flare Blitz. You've got to imagine it's into that Celesteela slot, and this will do good damage.
Yeah, so Yuri really covering up his options here, knowing that, hey, even if that Tapu Lele switches out, first of all, if my Arcanine outpaces the Tapu Lele, I can get the KO, despite the fact that both my Pokemon are intimidated. And if he switches into what usually is the Celesteela, since the team that Alessio is using here is really focusing a lot on trying to set up Celesteela into a position where it can yeah, just wall the entire team, maybe get a Beast Boost here and there in one of its defenses, and then just set up Leech Seeds left and right. But now that Yuri is down to his last two Pokemon, the question is whether he has already damaged his opposition enough for that Porygon 2 of his own to yeah, to outlast the resources that Alessio has left.
Yeah, that's the thing, and the Porygon 2 is an interesting one here because it can take a lot of attacks from things like Arcanine, Celesteela. You'd think that Alessio wants to get that Tapu Lele back on the field as soon as he can, maybe protect the Celesteela this turn, and we do see the Tapu Lele switch out for that Arcanine. Celesteela going for that protect this turn from the threatening Flare Blitz from Yuri's Arcanine, and we'll see what this Porygon 2 goes for. It does go for a Trick Room.
Yeah, good call here on your end, really knowing what both of those players wanted to do here this turn. And while Alessio maintained his Pokemon advantage, Yuri established the speed advantage now. Definitely with his Porygon 2, we're not quite sure about how his Arcanine is trained. It would probably outspeed the Tapu Lele in the Trick Room now though, since Yuri was so fond on setting it up. But yeah, Celesteela can't really do too much to Arcanine anyway. However, Alessio really realizing that, hey, I can just bring in my own Arcanine again, and it's another Intimidate on that Arcanine of Yuri. And not only do they have the same name, but they also have the same Pokemon there.
Yeah.
But yeah, also getting a very valuable Intimidate off on the Porygon that has Frustration as one of its moves, as we learn now. And with that Intimidate, Tapu Lele should be able to take this combination of attacks that Yuri probably hoped would be enough to take out the Tapu Lele. And now Alessio gets off that one big Psychic, and is it enough? It gets the KO on Arcanine. So now Yuri is down to his very last Pokemon. And while he did set up Trick Room, yeah, you gotta think that Alessio with the Celesteela in the back as well probably can take this game here.
Yeah, you would imagine so, and I think Alessio's kind of put himself into a really good position. He knew he just needed to get rid of the opposing Arcanine on the opposite side of the field, so he could bring in his Celesteela, which can handle that Porygon 2. Like you say, it just needs to get a Leech Seed off onto it, and it can pretty much stall it out. And he's still got 3 Pokemon at his disposal as well, so he can cycle around those Intimidates if he does want, because the Frustration being revealed. And the Arcanine isn't really too threatened at the moment, just able to sit and probably just keep going for Flare Blitzes.
Yeah, and but Yuri can probably recover to get rid of all the damage that Flare just did. He really does not want to be Leech Seeded by the Celesteela. However, Celesteela on the other hand might want to go for Protect this turn just to get a little bit more recovery from leftovers and also to stall out another turn of Trick Room. But in the end, if Alessio finds the one opportunity to get off that Leech Seed, then it'll be super difficult for Yuri to come back in this because yeah, he just won't be able to outdamage the recovery of Celesteela. However, on the other hand, Porygon also has access to some recovery via Recover on his own. So it could, like, we could be sitting here for a little while, but after this Ice Beam failed to get like a freeze or a critical hit onto the Celesteela, yeah, the Leech Seed is already there, and you can see it in Yuri's face. He's not satisfied with how this game went, and also probably knows that yeah, Porygon, yeah, it's very bulky and it can do a lot of things, but yeah, this might be just a little bit too much for it to handle.
Yeah, I think especially with the Leech Seed kind of chipping it down every turn as well, it's just going to make it extremely difficult for Yuri to kind of come back from this position. And you would imagine we can see actually the forfeit. It looks like it's coming out here from Yuri, so we might have a winner already, and we do. Players shake hands, and Alessio taking game 1.
Yeah, Alessio Vinciguerra taking game 1 here over Alessio Yuri Boschetto, and yeah, you can really see both of those players are really already thinking about the second game here. He's staring at this. Yes, he knows that I might be up 1 game, but Yuri is a player of a world's caliber, top 16 at this year's World Championships, and also really like great successes over the previous season, attending all the internationals and so on. So really a player that has so much experience, and a day 2 in VT the previous 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's what Alessio Vinciguerra is also looking forward to getting this season, since yeah, he's now, as we were mentioning before, he's now I think in 2nd place in the championship points in Europe. At 273, if I'm not wrong. So he's really already very, very close to that day 1 invitation. And yeah, but he probably wants to go a little further, going for the 2nd day and beating out a fellow competitor for those exclusive spots at the very top. Is definitely a really, really nice, or would be a nice feat. I mean, we're not here yet. He has won the first game, but Yuri is someone who's also known to be able to adapt, and now this time around he's taking a little bit more time. In the first game he selected his Pokemon very, very quickly, because he probably knew what he wanted to do, and yeah, he set things up relatively quickly. He had the very scary Choice Scarf Tapu Fini, and we were saying how the first turn might have favored him a little bit, but in the end trading the Garchomp for the Tapu Fini probably benefited his opponent a little more, because then in the end, he didn't really have any way to like maybe soak the Celesteela and then knock it out or something like that. And yeah, just credits to Alessio Vinciguerra, who was able to identify that yeah, knocking out the seemingly weak Choice Scarf Tapu Fini actually was something he needed to do there, and yeah, willing to give up his Garchomp on the first turn. So now, yeah, it's interesting to seeing with those two trainers, as we were saying, they probably played each other a good bunch of times and maybe already thought about the matchup going into this tournament even, or especially also going into this game. So they should be familiar with what the respective other is using. So now the question is, do they switch things up, or does Yuri think like, hey, okay, I actually did what I need to do, I just need to play it a little bit better?
We are going to see Alessio leading off with that Tapu Lele and the Arcanine again, and the same lead from Yuri. Leading off with that Tapu Fini and Kartana, so not really much deviation from game 1 here.
Yeah, so he thinks, okay, I actually know what I want to do. I do really like this Tapu Fini and Kartana lead, but I just need to play it a little bit better. Alessio Vinciguerra, on the other hand, now gets off that Intimidate on Kartana right away, and still has his Tapu Lele in place. So now, what do you think? Does now that Yuri doesn't have a clean KO on the board, I mean, he can potentially go for like Hydro Bump onto that Arcanine, but he could also just go for some Soul shenanigans, and let's see what he decides to go for here.
So we see the Tapu Lele protect, Ice Beam coming out from the Tapu Fini into the Lele, and we are going to see another Bloom Doom into what you would imagine is maybe the Tapu Lele slot.
Yeah, so really going all in here on the first turn. Decided to go for Ice Beam and not the Soak, which is a kind of curious decision, because potential Celesteela switch could have ruined his plans here. But maybe he knows his damage calculations and knows that yeah, with Ice Beam this is a clean KO on the Tapu Lele, and also I don't want to just be sitting there locked into Soak. But Alessio Vinciguerra really reading into that. However, it's not the Flare Blitz that really could have swung this game in his favor, but instead it's the Bulldoze. So Alessio really didn't want to commit too hard either, because of what happened in the first game. Yuri just calling back the Kartana, and yeah, Flare Blitz like wouldn't have done anything if that was the case again. So yeah, going with the Bulldoze, which is also a move choice that is getting more and more popularity here. And basically it said that, hey, okay, I'm using Bulldoze here, no matter what you switch in, I'll have the speed advantage from my Tapu Lele next turn, and I already have the terrain advantage, so I can probably go for a Shattered Psyche, and maybe you don't even have any switches. It looks like Tapu Koko is in the back this time around for Yuri, so that's one way to remove the Psychic terrain at least, but yeah, with that Z-move, Tapu Lele is still doing so much damage even outside of the second terrain.
Yeah, and we see Arcanine coming in as well on the other side, paired next to that Tapu Koko. We are going to see a Z-move, which is the Shattered Psyche from Alessio's side of the field, probably targeting into, would you imagine, the Tapu Koko slot, which was that Tapu Fini.
Yeah, it might be that. Might also try to double up into the Kartana for potential switching, but yeah, going after the Tapu Fini seems way safer, since there's also no threat of that going for like Protect or Detect. Just getting off a Z-move is always super nice, and even though the Tapu Koko was able to reset the terrain, it just goes down in one hit because, yeah, the Z-move is so powerful, and it looks like Alessio also decided to just play it safe against the Kartana, go for the Flare Blitz in case Yuri wanted to make a like crazy prediction here. Also, you can't really go for Bulldoze since it would also hit your own Pokemon here. So just Flablets to do a little bit of chip damage might also be really what Alessio wanted to see out of this turn. It's one of those plays where it's like, yeah, I'm very, very sure that you're gonna switch out the Cortana, but hey, I mean, I'm getting probably a KO, or I'm at least doing a lot of damage in the other slot anyway, so I can just afford to have Arcanine just sit there for another turn. And if you want to bring out Cortana now, then hey, it might not be intimidated, but I still have Arcanine that you can't really deal with. So now he forces Yuri to switch in the Tapu Fini, essentially.
Yeah, he's going to get that Misty terrain back up, kind of get rid of the electric terrain that was on the field. Yuri has a lot of pressure onto that opposing Arcanine now. You know, we know it's a Scarf Tapu Fini, so it can launch off potential Hydro Pump, Muddy Water. But the Tapu Lele is still threatening. But the thing is, do you at this point switch it out and maybe adjust your board position if you're Alessio?
Yeah, because if you can get it back in and maybe once again get off like a Bulldoze or something, that would be really, really clutch, because Tapu Lele and Psychic Terrain, that's just so much damage to both Arcanine and Tapu Fini. So now Alessio is the one with the Pokemon advantage, and he could even potentially like switch in one of his Pokemon that he feels is like less valuable than getting his Tapu Lele or the Arcanine in again. And I wouldn't be surprised if he just went for like something like a protect and switch play, because of just how dominant his position can be if he finds himself into that spot where he has like the terrain advantage or like gets off the intimidate.
We are going to see a protect come out from Alessio's Arcanine. We are going to see that Hydro Pump into the protect on the Arcanine, so Tapu Lele here free to move and goes for a Moonblast into the Tapu Fini and will do really respectable damage here, taking it down to about 50% health.
Yeah, so Alessio decided to not go for that switch here, but instead just like stay in with Arcanine. He knew that a potential water move was what Yuri needed to do if he wanted to have a chance at winning this game, because like he has to take a KO at some point. I mean, Yuri probably could have tried to go for that Hydro Pump into the Tapu Lele to get some chip damage there, but wouldn't have been enough for the knockout anyway. So now he gets in his Cortana, now threatens the KO potentially on the Arcanine with Hydro Pump, and also has Cortana out against the Tapu Lele. So with the switch, Yuri got himself into a playable position, I would call it, because if he can call what is happening like this next turn, then maybe there's still a way for him to make a slow comeback here.
Yeah, and the Arcanine, you've got to feel, has to withdraw like we see it doing now for that Celesteela, which is a pretty safe switch in for Alessio here. You know, it is going to be able to take the Hydro Pump, which comes out from that Tapu Fini, and it'll be able to take anything that the Cortana throws out into that slot as well. We do see a Leaf Blade come out from the Cortana, and it is enough to pick up the KO onto the Tapu Lele, and along with that, he's getting the Beast Boost.
Yeah, so Yuri really finding the KO here and now has the Beast Boost. An Arcanine, which would be the primary switch-in for Alessio's team against that boosted Cortana, it's just a little bit difficult to justify that, because then of course Tapu Fini is still on the field, still locked into Hydro Pump, and while you can bring in Arcanine for the Intimidate now and then protect it, so that Celesteela can get off a free hit, I think the combination of Hydro Pump and Sacred Sword might be close to getting the knockout on Celesteela here. So Alessio, while he was really ahead in the game, I would say, now against that really, really dreadful Tapu Fini and Cortana combination, yeah, he doesn't have his back against the wall, but he needs to be very, very careful to not let this Cortana and the Tapu Fini just steamroll over his team.
Yeah, because one thing Yuri could do here is double into the Celesteela, but then if Alessio doesn't protect his Arcanine here, predicting that play, can pick up a quick kick KO onto the Cortana, which again will throw the match right back into his favour. So it's a tricky turn here, and it's kind of just making sure you get the read right. What do you do? Do you go for the safe cover onto the Arcanine with the Hydro Pump, maybe protect Cortana this turn?
Yep. Or double up into the Celesteela, and I think, yeah, that's probably the two best options that Yuri has here. There's also a chance of, like, say, protect Arcanine and Heavy Slam coming into Tapu Fini to knock that out. So that's also something that he needs to consider. But instead, Alessio, Yuri decides to switch out into his own Arcanine, because that's just such a good switch in against Arcanine and Celesteela. So now he probably wants to just protect his Cortana this turn, because of how threatened it would be by both the Flablets from Arcanine and also potential Flamethrower from Celesteela, and that's also what we're seeing here. Flablets coming out, and what is Celesteela going to do here?
And a Heavy Slam into what was that Tapu Fini slot into now the Arcanine, doing very minimal damage, and not very effective against that Arcanine. So Yuri doing really well to kind of pull himself back into this game after, you know, losing the Tapu Koko so early on to that Shattered Psyche.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because we were talking about, hey, he either probably protects the Arcanine or might protect the Celesteela, but instead Alessio Vincigera didn't want to have any of those. He just attacked with both Pokemon. He said, hey, even if you take out one of my Pokemon, I know you can double target, but I don't care, because if I can take a KO this turn, then he feels like he's set up his whatever he has in the back in a way that he can deal with anything that Yuri can throw at him. So that might also hint at what he could have in the back. Maybe it's that choice card of Garchomp again. Yeah, we're seeing Protect here from the Celesteela and a substitute coming out from Cortana.
Bulldoze again coming out from Alessio's Arcanine. Probably won't be enough to break the sub on the Cortana and get that speed drop, but it does do a nice bit of damage to Yuri's Arcanine and lowering its speed to boot. We see the Bulldoze coming right back out at Alessio, returning the favour onto the opposing Arcanine. Obviously Celesteela being a flying type, immune to that, but it has protected this turn. But the big thing here is Yuri getting that substitute up with the Cortana.
Yeah, and it looked like Yuri really had his back against the wall this time, because Cortana used Detect the turn before, so now either he had to take like a fire type attack or switch into his Tapu Fini, which was at low HP and which was also kind of predictable. But with that substitute he finds another out where yeah, Alessio Vincigera needed to like double target into that Cortana with 2 fire type attacks, and we haven't even seen Flamethrower being a thing on his Celesteela yet. So yeah, with that substitute and now also Detect, yeah, it's actually kind of difficult for Alessio to knock out that Cortana, but yeah, there is the substitute on Celesteela.
Yeah, huge move there on Celesteela, getting the substitute off the opposing Arcanine on Alessio's side of the field, going for another Bulldoze to further chip away the Arcanine on Yuri's side of the field and lower that speed again. And the Bulldoze just being returned back at each other this turn as Yuri's Arcanine returns the Bulldoze, just matching the speed drops and damage output here, while both Cortana and Celesteela are now sitting behind the substitutes.
What are we seeing here? There's 2 steel types and they don't really care about the fire types. They're just hiding behind the substitutes, and the Arcanines are just like bulldozing at each other, not even trying to go for some fire type attacks. So yeah, that's a very unique situation that both of these trainers find themselves in here now. Even though they might have played against each other a couple of times, I doubt that this has happened before. So now it's a really weird position where neither of them really wants to switch out, because they would just give up so much potential here if they just like switched, and instead we're seeing that Sacred getting the KO on Arcanine here, which could be huge for Yuri, also snacking another Beast Boost on his Cortana. And now if this is Heavy Slam into Cortana, this could be super huge. If this doesn't break the substitute, then Cortana is in a very good position to deal with Garchomp. Does it fade? It does fade. Okay, so we're expecting the Garchomp to be the last Pokemon from Alessio Vincigera based on how he's played. So yeah, if he switches that in now, then I think he probably wants to go for Earthquake. But yeah, there's also the question whether Cortana even goes down from that. But yeah, Yuri's Arcanine now does what his opponent's Arcanine wasn't able to do, eats his berry, and is back at a reasonable amount of health. But of course, still, if that is the Garchomp in Alessio's back, then yeah, Garchomp doesn't really mind whether the Arcanine is at like 70% or 10 or...
Especially without the Intimidate. And
exactly.
You know, the thing on Yuri's side of the field though is he has got that Beast Boost, so the Cortana will now be back to +1 attack, so it will be, you know, offering good offensive damage with that Leaf Blade onto Garchomp.
Yep.
Probably isn't in range to get taken out by an Earthquake. But does this leave an opportunity for Alessio to go for another substitute with that Celesteela, with the pressure that Garchomp's putting on with that Earthquake this turn?
Yeah, I think this is what might happen. Also, Yuri could maybe want to, like, if he really wants to get off that Intimidate on his the Garchomp, he could now switch into a Tapu Fini, get rid of all his speed drops to then also outspeed the Celesteela in future turns. Maybe knowingly that the Tapu Fini will not be able to do anything this game anymore, since it will be outsped by the Choice Scarf Garchomp of his opponent. And so that could be something that I could see Yuri doing. And on the other hand, you already mentioned that Alessio could just go for that Earthquake and substitute play, but instead Arcanine is just staying in there, and this Earthquake, yeah, how much damage will it do to Cortana is an important question here. Probably not enough to get the knockout here.
No, it should just hang on, you would imagine, and it just does.
And it can also take another turn of rough skin damage here after hitting that Garchomp. But Yeah, Leaf Blade fails to get the KO here. Kartana will hang on here, but what does Celesteela do? It opted to go for the heavy slam into Kartana. This should be enough for the knockout here, as it is. And yeah, Garchomp with Earthquake. Yeah, Alessio Michigata really showing that he has planned this end game. He knew all along that he had the Garchomp in the back. And yeah, even though Yuri was able to set up the substitute with his Kartana, be kind of fancy and be cute with the Bulldoze, yeah, in the end, it looks like that Choice Carve Garchomp will just be a little too much for Alessio to deal with. Because you gotta imagine, the usual counter on his team against Garchomp is that Tapu Fini with Ice Beam that we've seen in the first game, also really paying off.
Yeah.
But since it just underspeeds the Garchomp of his opponent, it's just very difficult for him to really touch that Garchomp.
And you think the Garchomp Earthquake now will pick up a KO on both Orchids, both the Arcanine and the Tapu Fini. You can't imagine the Tapu Fini being able to take an Earthquake, not without the Intimidate support that Yuri probably does rely on quite heavily. Does go for the Protect with the Arcanine, does fail, and we see an Earthquake come out from Garchomp. It is going to probably pick up the KO on both Pokemon, and Alessio is going to walk away the winner of this round 2 match.
Yeah, he gets the critical hit on the Tapu Fini. Since the double protect attempt from Yuri failed on the Arcanine, that doesn't matter, but yeah, maybe he has some like defensive investment, I don't know, but yeah, usually you would expect this Earthquake